I'm playing something almost every week, and sometimes I want to talk about it and give you a vertical slice. So stick with me for some lightning reviews. This week on the chopping block. A little over a year ago, I purchased a Steam Deck. Well, at this point it's been about a year and 3 months, but that still counts. Anyway, since I'm in the process of trying out Stalker 2, I figured I'd take a look at my first hardware highlight, examine a few bullet points, and more importantly, take a look at the long-term staying power of Valve's first truly successful foray into the hardware market. I wanted to get a Steam Deck for a few reasons. First and foremost, I have an expansive Steam library, and it would be nice to be able to access many of those games in a more flexible scenario than sitting at my PC. Secondly, and relatedly, I don't know if this is something that a lot of other people share the opinion of, but I find it difficult to fully relax when I'm playing games at my PC. I'm not saying I've never relaxed when playing PC games, it's just not my natural default. Would it surprise you to hear that the main location I use my Steam Deck has been in bed? Yeah, probably not. Though I have brought my deck with me on overnight trips, my sofa, my deck chair in front of my apartment, and most any other place I regularly visit, but my deck has by far been used when I have genuine downtime, which is mostly when I'm laying down for the night. The ability to bring my vast Steam library anywhere gives a comfortable flexibility, and though you may have to ensure you download games you want in advance, with added storage options, bringing dozens of games on the go is a completely valid option. Also, I now associate my deck with me time. Games I pick to play on it are usually just for the sake of relaxing. That's not to say I haven't played games on my deck that eventually got reviews. That shorthand list consists of Chop Goblins, Squirrel Stapler, a second playthrough of Cult of the Lamb, House Flipper, Distance, Backpack Hero, Flat Out Ultimate Carnage, Inside, Limbo, Wreckfest, This War of Mine, and Hashtag Drive Rally have all had some degree of playtime on my deck. Away from my recording software, away from my workstation, just me time, even though 12 of the 34 games I've reviewed since getting my deck have had playtime on it. One minor irritation I have, though, comes from games that incorporate their own proprietary launchers, EA, Activision, etc. Sometimes this can entail having to go to the deck's desktop mode and having to muck around with installers. I'd say that's more the fault of those companies who really need to stop giving me the ammunitions to say f*** them. But that does also lead into one of the main shortcomings of the deck when compared to the ROG Ally or other Windows-based handheld gaming systems. The Steam operating system is very stable but rather inflexible, where things like the Ally reportedly allow for many more options but also come with the understanding that you'll have to mess around with settings like with Windows PCs. The Linux-based Steam Deck also does not play nice with several multiplayer games due to anti-cheat measures, but with all those caveats considered, there is still plenty to play. Finally, I have a small handful of selected games that I'm generating a bit of an ultimate playthrough bucket list, or to rephrase, I'm endeavoring to 100% certain games. This might be my favorite use of my Steam Deck so far. I've indeed done my 100% playthrough of Final Fantasy X, and eventually intended to add 12 to that list, as well as Okami and potentially doing a definitive playthrough of Fallout New Vegas. Most of those games put a heavy emphasis on grind, but if I'm laying comfortably in bed, I'm not sure I could care any less. Of a related side note, my Steam Deck is proving to be more stable in Fallout New Vegas than my PC built for high resolution at 1440p with, 240 frames per second. Go figure. Grinding usually entails not needing to pay full attention, which I'd say lends wonderfully to just chilling out. However, the sturdy construction of the Steam Deck means that it can handle more intense games when I need to lock in. There are 3 models available at the time of writing: a 64 gig version at $400, a 256 gig version at $530, and a 512 gig version at $650. Simply based off storage, I would recommend the 256 model. I mean, I filled up the space just installing games to test the system, and given the modern size of titles, some beefier games may require you to have nothing else on the system. This has changed since I published my original review. Shortly after, they announced and began distribution of OLED Steam Decks. They still have the 256GB non-OLED model available, but the other options had been replaced with OLED models of 512GB or 1TB of storage, in addition to some improved batteries and Wi-Fi receivers. Honestly, had I known about the coming upgraded models, I'd have held off, but regardless, I still have a satisfying gaming device. Besides, Valve has teamed up with iFixit to offer all parts of a Steam Deck so you can do your own upgrades or repairs if needed without having to migrate devices. The battery life can be a bit wanting, but that's probably the worst thing I could say, and I rarely had a game session that couldn't go at least 2 hours. At the same time, I also mentioned I could add storage through a micro SD card, and with the size of some titles these days, that's an almost essential feature. Every so often. While the necessity of a Steam Deck is fairly arguable in the grand scheme of gaming overall, I can say that my experience with it thus far is satisfying in the very least. This could probably get into an argument of semantics, but while a Steam Deck is absolutely not necessary, the expansion of options for one to be able to enjoy a large Steam library leaves me doubtful if I could go back. If you've got the scratch to spare and the library to back it up, the Steam Deck is a wonderful piece of hardware, and I'm not the only one who thinks so. At the time of writing, while exact numbers are a bit evasive, Valve themselves have stated that about a year ago, the deck had sold multiple millions of units. It may be a drop in the bucket compared to the likes of the Switch or Game Boy, but whether you like it or not, Valve is now a player in the handheld gaming hardware space. More games are tested and verified on a daily basis, and Valve has also put out a statement I very much support. That statement being that they will not be doing iterative upgrades like smartphones. Instead, they'll be opting for generational updates. Models that have enough substantive differences so that the tech becomes akin to a jump from, say, an Xbox to an Xbox 360. Which gives me comfort in that Valve will continue to provide support for their hardware for years to come. The lack of support for non-Steam games might be a bit of a nuisance for some, but the open source nature of the Steam Deck's Linux-based operating system means there's also a decent community of programmers and modders to increase the feature set. I mean, a friend of mine uses their deck as a PlayStation portal. Now, if you'll excuse me, Black Friday weekend is coming up, and I need to psychologically prepare. Hey, thanks for sticking around all the way to the end. Remember that I give away Steam keys with my regular weekly uploads, and all you have to do to enter is leave a comment and have contact info on your YouTube profile. But as always, thanks for watching, and keep your head on your shoulders.